the example that you were giving of Madonna as an exemplification of tuning into something that has already been made manifest,
Yes.
but is not hasn't been
Yes.
sort of
Yes.
blown up on a large
Yes.
level
Yes.
versus the person that she was attuning to or the thing that she was attuning to. That is an example of tapping into, like, actually attuning to moreness. That's a really interesting
The
example.
difference between the two.
Yeah.
She was attuned to the extrapolation of mourners that had been brought into reality,
Right, right.
which is not really a tapping into mourners itself. No, no. So whereas the originators, the new trendsetters, they're the ones who brought it from
Right,
mourners
right.
into, yeah. Yeah, it's just I don't know if you ever followed how closely you followed Madonna. I wasn't ever a great fan of Madonna, but I enjoyed watching her videos when she brought them out
Right.
from that perspective, just purely
Yeah,
for that,
yeah.
for the innovativeness and the connectivity of that skill of tapping into things. It was
Right, right.
profound. It was
Yeah.
very. I mean, she was
Madonna was
extremely adept
just
at skill.
a little bit before my time.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think if I had had cable TV when I was younger, it probably would have been, I would have caught sort of the tail end of that. But we didn't get, I mean, I never saw.
Look at those videos.
Right,
Cool, and I made this and you enjoyed it being cool, well, then obviously it has its own momentum, but she couldn't
right.
be bothered about that. She was focused on the newness and the sort of shock
Mhm.
value and, wowness value, moreness value. I couldn't care to make it mainstream, but typically the things did to some extent.
Yeah, yeah.
She was quite, I don't know. After that, I lost a lot of connectivity to pop culture
Mm,
in a
yeah,
more direct way, just because of on my adventures and things and all this. So I didn't necessarily have connectivity. I mean, I wasn't online for a long time.
right.
I was online, but not in social media. Was online from about the late '90s, somewhere mid '90s maybe.
Hmm.
But it was all just through the business thing and
Right.
no social media connectivity at all. And then even with the gaming, yes, the gaming gave some connectivity to things, but really for me, only connectivity from a more overall point of view, more than the only since 2015, really.
Yeah, yeah.
So, it's very recent for me, in other words. So I'm trying to say is I don't know who the equivalent of Madonna is today. I don't know if there is even.
Yeah. Well,
There's sort of very popular singers like I know you can name a few of female singers who are ridiculously popular. Um, they don't have that same innovativeness that Madonna has,
the
at least
the
not that I can
one
see.
the one that comes to mind for me, who she was always accused of sort of copying Madonna, which
Yeah, yeah.
I think, and I mean, a lot of people have since come out and said that really wasn't fair. The reason she was accused of that was because she was really similar to her in terms of bringing new things to the forefront, but she wasn't like literally copying what Madonna had done. Was Lady Gaga, and
All right,
I
right.
really I love Lady Gaga's music,
Interesting.
and
Interesting.
I think
Yeah.
I remember, um, she's had such an interesting journey on her career, and I remember her, in the very beginning of her career, she was using major shock value,
Yes.
doing all of these just completely off the wall things. And
Yes.
she said later, now she is recognized as an incredible singer, artist, songwriter, actress. You know, she is an incredibly talented, creative person. And she said at one point, kind of mid career, that because of the way the entertainment industry is, she had to start her career
Yes.
with shock
Yeah.
value because if she had just done it
Yeah.
off of talent, nobody
Yeah.
would have paid attention
Yeah.
because that's not really what gets people's attention.
Exactly.
So you have to do
Exactly.
something crazy to get their
Exactly.
attention, and then
Exactly.
you can show them, hey, I actually have real talent as well,
Yeah.
which was such a telling,
Yeah.
and that is such a telling thing about attention, about just the entertainment industry as a whole. I mean, it's really fascinating.
Yeah. And because the entertainment industry, at least in music, shifted from hearing to seeing.
Right, right.
Right. And, to me, Lady Gaga is exceptional because, I sort of have a little bit of a tease nickname for her
Oh,
as the most beautiful, ugly woman.
oh no. Oh dear.
But it's a compliment. I mean, yes, okay, somebody could take it as nasty, but she is, if you look at her in a pure way, she's not a conventionally attractive person. And if you see
Right,
her in the wrong light, she's decidedly, in a conventional way. Now, I don't look at people that way at all, but this is why I mention it though, because in that industry, looks are so critical. If you don't have the look, you don't get heard. Yes. And it
right.
changed. I saw a post yesterday or day before of it said, "Oh, today's the I don't know whatever 60th anniversary or 50th, 40th anniversary of Simon and Garfunkel's Bridge Over Troubled Water."
Oh, awesome.
You saw that post, right? Did you see
I
it
did.
or no?
I didn't.
Oh, anyway, but and then it showed a picture of what you would imagine to be Simon and Garfunkel, but it's actually a picture of Moe and Curly.
Oh no, how
Yeah, it's
funny.
genius. It's genius because if you haven't seen pictures of Simon and Garfunkel from back then and have a vague memory, and you
You
could
just know
easily
they had
tell,
curly hair and yeah.
right? I mean, there's a similarity, and they had them posed in a way. I suspect that they were doing this deliberately to mimic Simon and Garfunkel.
Right,
I mean, they looked decidedly Garfunkel-y, at the time. But
right,
but they came up in a time of radio
right,
where,
right.
right, it was you heard them and nobody knew what they looked like.
Yes.
So same with a lot of the great bands, Led Zeppelin, all of them. When you
Yeah.
actually saw them, it was like, holy crap, and
Yeah.
and a lot of not all of them survived that transition.
Yes.
Um, video killed the radio stars.
Right.
Actually, that that
Right.
that iconic pop song about this,
Yeah.
and then it all shifted to how you look. And if you look at your more modern artists that came a little bit later, it's all about the look. The music is very insubstantial and
Right.
doesn't matter. Britney Spears is now a great example of that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
the moves. And what's the Justin Timberlake is another one. Now he's making an effort, like Lady Gaga, to say, you know what, I am more than this.
Oh, for sure. He is a
Trying very hard.
phenomenal. Yeah, he's a phenomenal musician,
Exactly,
singer. Yeah, but
exactly.
his
But for the
his
longest
career
time,
his
yeah,
career started
yeah,
100% as
yeah,
just,
visual.
yeah,
Correct.
and sort of like
Yeah.
superficial.
Correct, correct. It was all visual, all superficiality,
Yeah.
all tapping into what is cool, and no real intrinsic value behind it.
Right.
So, yeah, he's had to really work very hard to actually establish himself as an actual artist, not just a
Right.
pretty
Right.
one. Yes. So, and this is why I credit Lady Gaga with so much,
Hmm.
because she not only has to deal with the trend settingness of Madonna, who again, if you take Madonna, I mean, she you could say, well, you leveraged Marilyn.
Exactly. Yes.
You have the same look as Marilyn, and you exploited that like how innovative was that as well. But of course, there's a lot of innovation to Madonna too. But same with Lady Gaga. But that the fact that she didn't have the inherent look like Madonna to a certain extent
Right.
had, and that she had to work to make this happen. I think this is quite phenomenal.
Yeah.
So that's why I said, sort of the most beautiful ugly woman. This is a major compliment to her.
Yeah.
not from a personal point of view, but from a conventionality point of view. That's an additional barrier she had to overcome, and she
Right.
has profoundly. So
Right.
yeah, I really admire her also, very
Yeah.
much so. In terms of grit and determination and
Yes.
making things happen. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
It's really fascinating when we look at these things from different perspectives. Yes, and you start to remove context and you start to see the moreness.
Right.
It's very, very powerful. Perspective shifting is ridiculously powerful. Looking for the underlying moreness
Right.
and the inability of perception generally to connect to moreness, because when things are different and unusual, they tend to get rejected.
Right. True.
Now, people are uncomfortable with it
Yeah.
because they have this association that it's not right, it's not good, it's like or whatever. And these artists have to really fight hard to bring this into there. They only
Hmm.
can do it once they're popular, which is really sad in a way.
Right.
They don't get popular because of their moreness; they get popular because of their sameness,
Right. Right.
which is absurd. Which is
It's
absurd. I
true.
mean, Justin Timberlake is such a just a classic example of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really fascinating. Yeah.
It is.
Occasionally, I guess somebody comes along and it's a fresh face or fresh voice or whatever. But still, they can't be too different. That this kills it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Really, really sad. Really sad. And I don't even think in the field of invention this exists.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. I mean, if things are too radical, no, just because it's radical, it automatically gets thrown out
True. Yeah.
simply because it's radical.
Very
No matter
true.
how logical and sensible and everything it is, just there, just because of that. Yeah. Now it's fascinating, right? If you take Edison, and he's credited with a lot of things,
Hmm.
but the thing that he spent his most time and energy on was the electric grid.
Right.
Right. Now, think of it as today, right? We are all the houses in pretty much, in any of industrialized worlds are connected by wires.
Right.
Imagine in 100 years ago or 200 years ago, however long, 100 and what's it, 120 years ago now, right? When this was not in the time of Edison.
Hmm.
And his conception, he went along and said to his investors, you know what I want to do? I want to connect every single building in the world with wires.
Right.
It's like, hello, are you nuts? Are you crazy?
Yeah.
Do you know what time and energy and work? I mean, this is a project that's it's mind-boggling. And yet today we have this. We are not only connected by the wires of electricity, but also phone and sewerage
Right.
and
Right.
astonishing that we are
Well,
connected. Now, oh,
oh, I was
go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say, speaking of things being thrown out that are just completely outside of conventionality, that's a great example of the fact that Edison, even though his idea was really ambitious, his idea was chosen, and whereas Tesla, who said,
Yeah,
I want to connect everybody, I want everybody to have power, but I want to do it wirelessly
yeah,
and give it to everybody for free.
exactly,
That was so far out of conventionality that
exactly,
everybody was like,
exactly,
absolutely not. No. And of
exactly,
course, now,
exactly.
today, if that had happened, can you imagine
Yeah.
how different it would be? I mean, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, his idea of giving it away for free wouldn't necessarily have been feasible, but it doesn't matter.
Right,
It, yeah, from a pure strategic point of view, he didn't understand the superiority paradigm, and therefore he got shot down.
right,
So
right,
you may end up there, but you're not going to start there. Where Edison understood the business and understood the world, so he
right.
got his grand conception of essentially cheap energy and power to
Yeah,
people because he worked with the system. He was in attunement. Tesla was profoundly out of attunement and not understanding that doesn't matter how noble your idea is. If it's out of attunement, nothing's going to happen.
right, right.
So where do you go? all you've got is the ego of you thinking I'm grand and wonderful and being noble and kind.
Right.
And
Yeah.
no, it doesn't help. You need to have strategy, so
Yes.
appropriateness. So
True.
Tesla, Edison are fantastic examples of
Yes.
why we need to understand the full spectrum, and
Right.
attunement is taking all of it into account.
Right.
Very, very important.
Um,
Just by the way, on the houses being connected. So okay, we've got, electricity, phone, sewerage, internet. I think there's potentially another one that, water. I knew there was one more that I'm missing, right? So I have the grand idea of making one more connection, and
okay.
this is to connect all houses and buildings via tubes,
Okay.
right? And what are the tubes for? Shipment.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah. So if every house has tubes, and in the tubes, they, like when you go to the bank and they suck
I
the
was gonna say, are
little
you talking about
container,
like pneumonic too? Pneumatic? What are those called? Pneumatic.
pneumatic tubes. Yes, yes. But I want to take it a little step further, right? But yes, essentially the pneumatic tube
Okay.
idea, right? Because it's very efficient, so that you're taking all of your entire road and rail ship transportation system. You're doing it all through tubes.
Okay.
Yeah. And inside the tube is a vacuum, which means that you are absolutely going to move your cargo at the most effective way possible, because you are
Right.
reducing air resistance, which is a
Right.
major drag, and also, vehicle resistance. So
Right.
what you do inside the tube is you have an electromagnetic grid, and each
Okay.
container has got a solid state magnet on it.
Okay.
Yes. And this is, you're putting the opposite, so that the magnets on the container are on the rail, which is now, the bed is electromagnetic. Yes. So as the container moves, you got the opposite things, the
Mm-hmm.
polarity, right? So it's floating on a cushion of nothing, of
Right.
magnetic force,
Right.
not even air, magnetic force. But as it moves forward, the magnets at the bottom are slightly angled.
Okay.
They do this, and then they do that, right? So they attract as the container moves, they attract and then repel. Yes.
Okay.
But only where that microsecond that the magnet is in that exact spot to do this. Yes.
Okay.
See what I mean? So in other words, you're not having the whole rail line magnetized or electrified, right, to the magnet. It's not on all the time. It's only on when the things come right above it, right? So it's the absolute most efficient use of your energy, and you are now transporting something with the least possible amount of resistance that you can.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And there you go. And now you move your stuff. Now, if you want to take this to another level, you can do the bulk transport via siphon.
Okay.
Right. So I put up a big. I can go up onto, what is it, Mount Wilson in LA, for instance, and I start a big container-sized tube. Yes, and it goes
Yeah.
all the way to New York. And I put seawater in this, because seawater is, well, plentiful, right? And I make the containers waterproof,
Right.
right? And I put, buffers on the side of them, like wheel buffers, so that if they touch the side of the tube, that they just kind of roll through it. And I essentially start a siphon from the height in California on the mountain to New York, right? Because it's going to be above sea level. So, and it's a long siphon pipe, and it's just going to drain. And all I've got to do is essentially keep pumping seawater from the sea up to the top of Mount Wilson.
Right.
And through this, I will be able to transport all of the cargo traffic that otherwise would be on
Mhm.
trucks and trains.
Right.
Yeah.
I like it.
And I mean, for the cost of transporting that water, now it's going to be a lot of water, obviously, but still, I mean,
Right.
the cost efficiency of this is going to be ridiculously cheap, no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably true.
Yeah. Now,
I
if you want to really get fancy with this, you pump all that water. All right, and then you're going to have to use um, uh, fresh water. But if you use fresh water and you pump it, instead of pumping it up onto Mount Wilson, you pump it up into the whatever the nearest great big hydroelectric dam is. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And now you're using the cost of transport. When you release it, it generates electricity, which mitigates your cost.
True.
Yeah. So it's not only doing transport, but it's also generating electricity.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I just thought, but in terms of the conception, to say, well, you want to connect all the houses with tubes, this is crazy. Well, all the houses are already connected,
Right.
with 5 different connectivities. It's like,
Right.
so, but still, it puts people off when such big ideas come
Right.
all at once.
Right. True.
Yeah. I mean, same thing with that tube. I mean, if you think of having that kind of a tube go underneath or along the floor of the ocean to eliminate
Right.
all the shipping,
Right.
to me, it makes so much more sense. If it's vacuum or water, either way, it doesn't matter. I think the vacuum actually would probably be more energy efficient than pumping the water, I
Right.
suspect, but who knows? But either way, I mean, just this is Nobelia. This is how everything happens on Nobelia, by the way.
Right. Right.
They have the whole system already in place. And what you get, your home tube, is basically the size of um, the dimension where if you were to lie in it on a stretcher, you could.
Okay.
Right? So worst case scenario, you can use this to move people about in emergency circumstances.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you send a capsule to the home, and if you now really wanted to travel this way, you could as well.
Right.
You have a special little pod, and you lie down in it and you zip about, or you could sit up maybe in it. But that's a fairly big mouth tube. Now, I suppose you could have, depending on your house and your economic circumstances, you can have a smaller one, and you can't accept such big packages. But if you started off with a certain size, that where you essentially take anything that within that size, at least the width, that component wise, you can assemble anything. Yes.
Right.
So, but just from the convenience of, now, if you take it to be what, 3 or 4 foot wide, maybe 5 foot wide, I mean, a 5 foot wide tube, because length is now not much of an issue. Yes, there's going to be curvature, so somewhat of an issue. But boy, I mean, the things that you could do from a component point of view, it's pretty much anything goes. No, you can break
Yeah.
anything down into that size component wise. So you can IKEAfy the whole world and ship it. But can you imagine? No more waiting for shipping.
Yeah. That would
I
be
mean,
really
it's
interesting.
same day pretty much no matter what. Doesn't matter where you are. Yeah.
Yeah. That would be really fascinating.
That's something. Anyway, just made me think, talking about creativity and grand ideas. That's really, to me, just simple extrapolation, like Durness. And
Right.
it's reverse engineering as well. Shipping is a big, big, big issue. And when I was in doing at the eBay business, I was doing the shipping all the time. So I'm just thinking about how can you make this better?
Right.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Once you start thinking about it, it's leads to leads to
Yeah.
the key is the conception in the first place,
Mm-hmm.
right? The conception being is that shipping can be substantially improved.
Mm-hmm.
And also the conception of breaking out of the boundaries of conventionality to think big, in other words.
Right.
I mean, I've had plenty such ideas, big, massive scale ideas. Just then my brain thinks all the way through to the end, and then you are going to get it on this worldwide scale,
Right.
right? With the tubes under the sea and all this. By the some point will likely happen because of global warming.
Yeah.
Because okay, you've got the pollution from the trucks, but never
Right.
mind the trucks, the ships.
Yes.
People don't know that one ship produces as much pollution as a small sized city.
Right.
It's incredible, and it's unregulated.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the planes. They're a little bit deregulated, but same thing, they're not regulated. So,
Yeah.
this, when the public become aware of this real awful truth, I think it would change matters considerably.
Right.
And then there's going to be pressure on doing things differently. So I do foresee an age of sail coming back for the ships
Oh, yeah.
before the tubing comes in, because with the technology today, you can certainly make sailing vessels economically viable.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
with the hydrofoils and all of this,
Right.
where you're not relying on your keel anymore. You
Right.
have a hydrofoil in the water, which through the aerodynamic effect rights the ship, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a profound thing. It's like an outrigger type of a thing, but it's
Yeah.
just conception again, shifting your conception slightly different. The
Yeah.
reapplication of existing technology. Pina, Pina, remind me about uh, uh, re restructuring old age. Right? We spoke about this, right? I knew there was something I wanted to bring
Restructuring
up.
of?
Old age. Will you share? Well, I think we've got a couple minutes here. Please, Erica, just a recap that conceptuality that I was saying about, restructuring things in a different way. Like I said, with the sailing and sailing into the wind, we are
Right.
taking the same conceptions, the same
I
things
think,
that we already know, and rearranging them in a way that changes everything.
right. Was that where we were talking about will? Was
Correct.
will
Correct.
part of that conversation?
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yes. Will and the energy tightnesses, tensions.
right. I'm trying to remember exactly. I'm trying to remember how all these pieces fit together. But yeah, I know will was part of the conversation. But
Yeah, it was will and old age. Exactly.
if I remember correctly, Syl was talking about the concept of sailing into the wind and about sort of using the force that you think you're working against in such a way that the more you push on it, the more it works in your direction, sort of.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely remembering how
Right.
all
So,
that's
so we are going to say instead of the force that's pushing on you, pushing you away from the force, you are going to leverage this force to actually pull you into it.
okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It does the very opposite. So we are going to use a force to move directly into the force, and even doing so at a speed that's faster than the force itself.
Right.
This seems utterly, utterly, utterly impossible. Yes? I mean, logically, how do you say, well, wait a second. You're telling me that you got a force that's coming at you, and you're going to use this force, the force itself, you're going to use to make you go into the force faster than the force itself. Yes, I'm saying. Yes, this is actually technically doable, and not technically, it's been done, right? So there's actual example of this existing in the world. And not because somebody had a new invention of new crazy technology, or not because of aliens or anything, but simply because they had the conceptuality to arrange things in a different dimensionality.
Right.
Yes, different planes, as it were. They rearranged existing elements simply through thinking out of the typical planes of thinking.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So that was just my analogy for saying we can. I feel, why can't we do this with death or old age?
Right.
Yes, because those are both forces that are pressing on us. We may fight against them, and like we're beating or tacking or fetching into the wind, it's slow, it's cumbersome. You can sort of do it, but ultimately it's not, you're not really succeeding. Yes,
Right.
but with this sailing into the wind, if we can do this with death and with old age, this is the transformation. So now we led to taking the tensions of life and moving them from where we typically put them into the body, and shifting their plane and moving them into will. Yes.
Right.
And having them feed our will, and will becomes the propeller that pulls us into this force. Yes. In a
Right.
positive way, not in a negative way. Yes. So this is a very, very, very big deal. Okay, we'll go over it again, because that's why I wanted to go over it again, because it's a profound concept, not just when it comes to old age and death, but in terms of our thinking. And here's the key to it. It is, yes, we've been focused on accessing moreness, but this is a different kind of a moreness.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, we assume that we need to get answers, we need to get something new,
Right.
No.
Right.
In the case of the sailing, there was nothing new whatsoever,
Hmm.
except arrangement of elements.
Right. Yeah.
So this, and I've seen this time and again in my life, that we already have everything we need. It's simply a matter of arranging it.
Yeah.
And this is what we want to train our brains for. Yes, newness getting downloaded via my background over there, right? That's moreness getting downloaded. This is
Right.
all fine and well and wonderful. But if you get something that's a moreness that's so out of tune and alignment with the world that, yes, sure, I've got a new motor that I've invented from moreness that works on, I don't know, some fuel that isn't, it's not being manufactured. It's not. So what? It doesn't help me. I can't use it because the rest of the world has to catch up in order to use
Right.
it.
Right.
It's like having an electric motor in Roman times. Nobody was producing electricity, so how are you going to use it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's pointless, right? And the same way, so moreness doesn't always solve the problem, but when you have existing circumstances and you can arrange them in a way that does give you this, now is no problem, right? Like I said, that same sailing technology can be used back in the day of whatever, how far back you go, doesn't
Right.
matter. Yes, it doesn't matter how far back you go, you can use that. And this is a favorite exercise of mine. If I were to be transported back into Roman times with nothing except what's in my mind, right? So I wake up naked and I'm in Roman times. Like, what the hell now? What do I want to have in my brain? Right? One powerful concept is willow bark.
Okay.
That's where aspirin comes from.
Ah, okay.
Right? Painkillers. I mean, just think of the fortune that you're going to make and the ease and convenience, and you can go anywhere without language. If you've made something that cures pain, you just walk around and you look for somebody with pain and you give them your aspirin that you've now made from
Right.
willow bark, or willow bark tea or whatever, and say, here you go. And the person's pain is, man, that's it. I've got a meal. I've got an occupation. Right? This
Yeah.
is it. So that's a very simple thing to be aware of. But same thing with sailing, just how sailing works. Never mind the propeller sailing,
Hmm.
just the concept, because they were at push sailing then. They didn't have, across the wind or into the wind. They
Right.
just used their sails in a poor way. All it is taking the existing sail, shaping it a little differently, and there you go. You've
Hmm.
transformed the world just by regular sailing. Never mind the propeller mechanism is sailing into the wind. Okay,
Right.
if you can
Right.
get the engineers to design this, wow, you transformed the world once again.
Yeah.
No more rowing, no more rowing.
Right.
Yeah, profound shifts, profound shifts. So anyway, I think there's a lot of things like that. I mean, if you want to start in electricity, understand copper wire, which was available back in those times. At least
Mhm.
copper was, right? You can make copper wire and magnets. The two together gives you induction, gives you electricity. Yes.
Right. Right.
Yeah. 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 Very, very powerful. So simple things. The U bend, right? In
Hmm.
plumbing. This is what makes toilets work.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you can have them without the U bend, but that's really what makes for flush toilets is the U bend. Yeah, yeah, to give you that convenience of the mechanism. So
Right.
again, you've got ceramics, you've got everything. When you understand how a flush toilet works, this is a great thing to
Yeah.
understand as well. So okay, it's more, very sort of more materialistically orientated ideas, but like the medicine and all this. But still, it's interesting to think in terms of your brain, how using what is existing and using it differently to make a profound difference.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's a good exercise, because if I can take that thinking into Roman times, I can do the same now, to say what around me can I use and rearrange differently to get something profound.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Very big deal. Very big deal. Are you napping?
Am I napping?
Mhm.
Like, am I going to nap?
Yes, I mean, are you in general napping now with with
Well,
Gertie?
I'm trying to whenever I can. Yeah, Joe has been in the office all week, so I'm the only one here.
Ah,
But he's here today doing an all-day meeting, so hopefully today I will be able to nap.
Okay, I hope so because I'm seeing it, but the need for naps is what
Yes,
I'm
for
saying.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I love it. And again, anytime if you on Gertie Vigil and you want to, have a bit of company, anytime,
Well,
absolutely,
thank you.
please.
I appreciate it.
I do make an effort to leave Zoom up. If it's not up, just message me. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it
Okay.
times out, and I don't notice it times out because it's not sitting on the front.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I actually don't have it on the front on the phone because it takes more battery, and it even runs my battery down even though it's plugged in if it's sitting right in front, like
Right.
it is now. So please, always, anytime, this would be a great joy, maybe a great joy to me.
Yeah. I
So
appreciate
okay, just in terms of the takeaway, to train our brains to do things a little bit
it.
differently. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, as a default,
Right.
Yeah, very
Right.
profound, very
Absolutely.
profound. Okay, brilliant, brilliant.
Love
Be
it.
really well and magical,
Thank
Erica.
you.
Be
Thank
really well
you.
and
You
magical.
both as well.
My heart is with you right now, very much so.
Thank you.
Not from a sadness point of view,
Right.
but from a joy, spirit, magic, awesome, beauty, countness, sublimity, reverence point of view.
I like
Yes,
it.
yes. I mean, if you bring reverence into what you're doing right now with Gertie, changes everything. Yes.
Yeah.
As soon as you put spirit into that walk, reverence comes into the picture. Yes.
Absolutely.
It's hard to bring reverence in if it's just you and Gertie. But soon as
Right.
spirit is walking on that path, reverence is right there. Yes.
Absolutely.
Very profound. Vina, anything to add before Erica goes? Or to share? Or to ask? Or to ignore?
Seems like she's having connection troubles.
Yeah. Vina, you muted. You muted, Vina. I think she double tapped mute. So
Mm.
she unmuted and muted again. Yeah. We ask her to unmute.
No, I'm not muted, but okay.
Well, go ahead. Anything to share before Erica goes? Even if it's goodbye?
My network is pathetic, so
Yeah.
sorry. I don't know what is happening here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, yep. There we lost.
Yeah.
Well, tell Bina bye from me when she comes
Yeah, I
back.
will.
And
I will. I will. I
I will
will.
hopefully catch her
I will.
again
I'm
soon.
just enjoying the joy of moreness. I mean moreness on top of moreness, like profound moreness, not moreness of necessarily idea or innovation, not that kind of moreness or newness, but the moreness of profoundness.
Hmm.
This is really something truly special. Yes. So
Absolutely.
I mean, just what a magical time to go through. So, in case you have Abina, you here again. Erika says goodbye.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye, Erika.
Bye,
Ah.
Bina. It was great to chat with you.
Yes,
And I will
yes.
catch up with you
Most
both
beautiful.
soon.
Most,
Yes.
yeah,
Agreed.
yeah. Brilliant, brilliant. All right. Bye bye, Erika. Bye bye, bye
Bye.
bye. Bye bye, bye bye,
Bye.
bye. Too magical, too magical. All right, Bina, I'll go over this, what I was sharing there.